Welcome to a special Saturday edition of Creature Guide Live Daily News. Today, we will not be going over different articles, but a wide variety of different species of dinosaurs from the Cretaceous and Jurassic periods. So, let's start off with a species of herbivorous dinosaur from the late Cretaceous period called Mercuryceratops. This seems to be a little too much like some of its later relatives from probably about at least 8 million years into the future. It seems to be like a smaller Triceratops specimen. It could be maybe a Titanoceratops. It seems to be too broad for certain species, at least the overall center of the skull, like Pentaceratops, but it looks very Triceratops like, and there's a beetle on the side of the face. That's odd. I'd say for Mercury Ceratops, maybe there have been that's from last year. Have there been certain depictions of not Triceratops, Mercury Ceratops where it has extremely long horns compared to its eye sockets, unlike older reconstructions, which tend to show it having almost horns that are quite similar to a close relative known as Chasmosaurus. Also, Mercuryceratops is part of the Chasmosauridae lineage of ceratopsids. So, this animal has been discovered over in Alberta, Canada, adjacent to the Dinosaur Park Formation, and possibly even the Judith River Formation of Montana. So, this animal inhabited, for say, Alberta around 77 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period or the late Campanian stage of the Cretaceous. And it would have coexisted with different species of centrosaurs and other chasmosaur ceratopsids within the region, as well as different species of duckbill dinosaurs or hadrosaurs. Oh, yeah, it seems that in the background of this picture might be the large crocodilomorph or pseudosuchian, the Dinosuchus, which would have occasionally fed on pretty much any species of dinosaur within the region, even including unsuspecting different species of theropods that came for a drink. What is interesting is that it is showing the animal in a very protective sort of a group, at least when it comes to watching over its young.
Why does that
So,
baby look like a puppy?
yeah, it does. I think actually the one towards the center looks very much like a ceratopsian that wants to play fetch or wants like a fern treat. So, also, I think they look really good for baby ceratopsians in general. A much shorter frill compared to the overall body size. Very short horns, except the nasal horn, but that's probably okay. I'd say the one in the center, it almost has like a protoceratops sort of a look, but it's supposed to be pretending like it's barking at something almost. I don't know. It's just it looks like a little dog.
Blox Fruit said hi.
Oh, well, welcome aboard, fellow Pentaceratops. So, that is a species of ceratopsid from slightly later into the Cretaceous, around 75 million years ago. Now, looking at this Mercury ceratops depiction, it also has much longer horns. So maybe it was of another specimen that we discovered with Mercury ceratops just showing much smaller horns compared to its body size. Now, if you were to compare it to certain other species of ceratopsians, there's a number of them, especially the other larger chasmosaurs that have evolved slightly later into the Cretaceous, such as Titanoceratops, Eotriceratops. They will have much longer horns compared to their body size, even so slightly when it comes to the nasal horn. But setting aside many centrosaur species, the nasal horn or the horn that would be placed on the tip of the snout is usually very short compared to the eye socket horns. It's a big mystery as to why that is. It is a very interesting overall I guess scenario when it comes to just simply how the horns are situated on animals such as Mercuryceratops. Whoa. I don't believe we have found a frill of any or skull of any species of ceratopsid with this type of an extension towards the side of the frill. That is quite odd. I think there might be certain species where there's a bit of a gap somewhat, but the whole frill is connected. And it can have a slight sort of a similar looking type of a side structure, but that's still quite odd. But I will say also that the horn structures on this animal, maybe for certain older reconstructions, it would have been um, maybe seen as correct, but today this is a bit off. It almost looks like a bit of a cow to an extent, but besides that, I think the rest of the body is okay.
Did you say it
Except,
looks like a cow?
yeah, it's just the way that the horn, like the horn structure specifically, kind of matches certain cows or even extinct bison from the Ice Age. At least in my opinion. A very large beak, however, compared to its body size, at least the upper beak, that might be a little oversized. I think the frill overall, asides that side extension, looks good. Even the specific horns arrangements, they look pretty similar. Oh, well, maybe it's Mercury Ceratops that I am thinking of, where and also this seems to match better. Like specifically with that model, it just had it where it was sticking out to the side, and then a massive also extension of the side horn towards the center of the skull. So I just found it extremely odd. This looks much better. So it's probably Mercury Ceratops that has that or it seems to have that odd sort of a gapped part of the frill. That is odd. Like, why would a dinosaur and a ceratopsian specifically evolve this trait? I don't know how it would really benefit it. Now, it does seem to be that the horns along this part of the frill, unlike the rest of them, seem to be quite sharp and rather long. The others seem to be quite dull. So maybe they would have performed some form of defense when, like, a species of tyrannosaur would be attacking them, such as Albertosaurus. Maybe like especially when they're trying to bite towards the neck and it could cut through their face slightly, but still it is rather odd. There doesn't seem to be any evidence for these types of gaps within the frills that we've discovered of Mercury ceratops showing any signs of like bite marks for the most part. Yeah, it's just a simply massive um like indentation, so that's odd. And then we have that very typical earlier chasmosaur gap within the frill, which would be covered by or containing a dense layer of tissue. So there likely wouldn't be any blood vessels running through that region. I think there were certain older theories as to possibly kind of like with what we see in the plates of the stegosaurs back in the early Cretaceous and the late Jurassic, mid Jurassic, is that there might have been certain blood vessels running through those plates and then creating a variety of color. There are also certain older theories suggesting that they might have helped warm the animal up when creating a rush of blood, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence of blood vessels extending into the plates. So they might have been colored, but simply for display and a type of protection. And at least with the chasmosaurs and ceratopsids in general, it seems to be very similar, except they would have provided a much better layer of protection. I'm guessing this is of a specific frill of a Mercury ceratops that we have discovered because I think we have the horns intact. Also, it seems to be that the horns, at least the nasal horn, is a bit further towards the center of the skull on Mercury ceratops compared to a wide variety of other species of ceratopsians in general. Maybe if you're including certain species that had a bit of like a lifted dome or a flat dome, like Pachyrhinosaurus or certain other species, like possibly a Kellosaurus. So this animal also was an herbivore. Let's go back to one of the colorful pictures.
I was trying to find something else, but they're calling certain things Mercury saber-tops that are not. Oh, wait a minute. Here, hold on. Too small.
There were a few different species of ceratopsian, especially within the Chasmosaur lineage, that would have looked similar. Whoa. For Mercury ceratops, I mean, maybe there's another species specifically of the genus Mercury ceratops that we have discovered that would have had much longer horns compared to its body size, but I believe we have only found one so far, though there are many instances with different species of dinosaurs, prehistoric animals in general, where it is a constant debate on whether or not there are maybe a couple of other species belonging to a genus. It's still a good-looking animal. He kind of looks like your stereotype, Chasmosaurus. Though I think for a Chasmosaurus, the eye socket horns would be a slightly like, there would be a slightly larger gap in between them. However, looking at the side of the frill, that is distinctly, or as that's basically a Mercuryceratops. You're not going to find that kind of a characteristic on a Chasmosaurus specifically. It does seem to be, though, that Chasmosaurus would have been coexisting with Mercuryceratops during the late Campanian stage of the Cretaceous around 77 million years ago over in Alberta. And Chasmosaurus is also a bit more common when it comes to its remains, as well as many different species of centrosaurs that would have roamed the area. And they likely also would have existed in different parts of Montana back then as well. There's not many species of dinosaurs that come in from British Columbia and Saskatchewan, really due to the way that the animals would have been buried, just simply the geological sediments that are present. Late Cretaceous animals are very rare, at least in those regions. Alberta is a haven. So yeah, this is at least been looking at the feet of this animal, a better representation of a chasmosaur foot structure. As you can see, it's extremely wide. It almost has like a hippo-like look to it. Now, it's very likely that these animals weren't consistently in the water like today's hippos. However, they did have very wide feet compared to their body size. And in many cases, it seems much more than hippos because hippos tend to have or at least much smaller feet compared to their body size, but they do have a very fatty, wide sort of haze structure. Um, well, here, I think this is supposed to be a giant, one of the large hedgehogs, not hedgehogs, echidnas of Australia or possibly even Papua New Guinea back in the Ice Age.
Yeah, but it
And
was listed as a Ceratops.
oh, that is strange. So apparently, yeah, he's listed as a Mercuryceratops. He wants to identify as an Archosaur. I understand the feeling very well. So yeah, there were giant echidnas right before we go back into the dinosaurs, back in the Ice Age or the Pleistocene epoch over 300,000 years ago. And back then, you had it since sea levels were much lower due to the massive glacial extents. You had Papua New Guinea ecosystems connected to the ecosystems of mainland Australia. So animals could walk back and forth or migrate back and forth. Different species of large 7 to 8 foot tall kangaroos or ground dwelling kangaroos. Different species of large tree kangaroos that would roam the area, also with certain species reaching well over 120 pounds with the tree kangaroos or pushing maybe about 50 kilograms. The largest tree kangaroos today don't really reach much more than 25 to 30 pounds or a little over 12 kilograms. You also had large species of lizards that close relatives of the Komodo dragons like Megalania roaming the entire region and giant species of wombats. But the giant echidnas, and what I mean by giant is probably pushing between 35 to 50 pounds, but still a behemoth for an echidna, or pushing probably 15 to a little over 20 kilograms. And they're just feeding on different species of ants and termites like the short-nosed echidnas and the long-nosed echidnas do today. There's around 5 to 7 different species of echidnas that exist both on Australia. Well, some of them exist over in Australia, and a couple exist over in Papua New Guinea. But they would still have had a wide variety of predators, but contained that distinct porcupine quill-like armor, despite not being closely related to the porcupines in the Mammalia family tree or the taxonomic tree of mammals. They are members of the it's a specific line of mammals that's more closely related to the marsupials than the placentals. Gosh, it also contains the platypus. It's not hitting me at the moment. Um, but these animals, unfortunately, would go extinct somewhere between 9 to 12,000 years ago. But yeah, the Mercuryceratops was also an herbivore. So it's just feeding on different species of flowers, earlier species of flowers at the time, different species of ferns, even fallen over conifer trees, and probably not going after any other species of dinosaurs. Okay. Let's look up the Gobi Titan or bring up the Gobi Titan. So we're going to travel to another part of the Cretaceous in this instance, and it's not going to be a ceratopsian. However, it probably did coexist with some of the earliest species of ceratopsians to exist. Whoa, whoa, no. It has what seems to be possibly velociraptors attacking this animal, and Velociraptor did not coexist with this medium-sized species of sauropod or long-necked dinosaur. Velociraptor won't appear until somewhere around 71 million years ago.
John Doe's in the chat.
Oh, welcome aboard, Theropod. Let's see. Oh, okay. So Gobi Titan. Also, when it comes to this reconstruction, it is a member of the Somphospondylid lineage of sauropods, and technically, the Somphospondylids would contain the all of the members of like Titanus, certain members of Titanosauridae, and even certain types of brachiosaurs. But this animal would probably have a much longer neck compared to its body size. It almost has like a chimera sauromorph sort of a appearance. Also, the tail is first of all, there's just random osteoderms occurring towards the back of the tail. There's not really a single species of sauropod that contains this type of a trait. In fact, it kind of reminds me of certain species of allosaur, metracanthosaur, theropod, carnivorous dinosaurs, but they tend to have just mainly an elongated part of an elongated back vertebrae. So that's odd. This animal, this is much better, was existing over in China, northern part of China. So you might as well say Mongolia in this instance, considering it's named after the Gobi Desert, and only a mere fraction of the Gobi Desert is within north central China. And the rest is basically over in Mongolia. And this creature, so it was existing in the region during the early Cretaceous period around 123 million years ago. So it likely came into contact with certain members of the Metracanthosaur lineage of allosaurs, probably even certain species of Asian carcharodontosaurs, and earlier species of coelurosaurs, like different species of carnivorous megaraptorids that would have roamed the region. Now, you could also include some of the primitive tyrannosaurs at this point and some of the last members of Proceratosauridae. Like, technically, Tyrannus was roaming this time. Whoa, what on earth? What happened? At first, it looked like somebody decided to stick on like the older reconstruction of a ice age mammal known as a macrauchenia.
I just thought he was funny.
And then all of a sudden, I see what are possibly either spikes or colorful feathers, and then the odd, like, dragon tail coloring in the background,
Wait a
and a
minute.
very skinny legs. Whoa, okay, what is going on here? Was he named after never mind. I don't think anything to do with the name. This is, yeah, definitely not sauropod-like. You know, it kinda reminds me of, I think certain reconstructions of, like, older Ceratosaurus, I think, reconstructions from the late 1800s, they added an immense, horn, probably referring to the snout horn of the carnivore to the front of its skull, making it, very hideous. And, yeah, this, it looks like what, he's got 2 pairs of no, 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 4 pairs of tusks? No, it would be just, I think, 2. And then, yeah, that odd Ceratosaurus snout horn towards top of his skull. We don't have any evidence for really any species of sauropod to have had a horn-like structure. And there's a trunk that did used to be an older theory for different species of sauropods that they might have contained trunks to help snatch like larger quantities of vegetation to stick into their mouth, and might have helped with just simply obtaining an essential or a vast amount of nutrients considering their massive size.
John Doe just said, double checking. Most sauropods are Jurassic and raptors are just Cretaceous. Is that true?
It's possible that dromaeosaurs were roaming the Jurassic period, but it would be like very late into the Jurassic, so somewhere between 150 and 160 million years ago.
Wait,
Also,
when you're saying Dromaeosaurs, you're talking about the raptors.
yeah, dromaeosaurs, raptors, both refer to in that instance the same thing. They're just very rare, at least when it comes to the late Jurassic. And the sauropods, they start to emerge around 180 million years ago during the early Jurassic. But beforehand, remember, you had it where the Jurassic first began around 201 million years ago, and then would end about 143 million years ago. And for the first 21 million years, it was the Earth was pretty much dominated by prosauropods in an herbivorous stance. And then there was this massive transition into sauropods, like the different species of early species like Volcanodon, the Shunosaurus, and later on into the mid and late Jurassic, they would massively create a variety of different species and groups. And also into the Cretaceous, you have a wide variety of different species that would occur. You do have it where by around like 93 to 95 million years ago, unfortunately, there seems to be this massive die off of different species of titanosaurs and then different lineages of sauropods like the diplodocids. The brachiosaurs also are, slightly earlier on, and certain other members of the Somphospondylid lineage as well, or even Macroninian sauropods.
So are you saying they did own that sauropods only lived in the Jurassic, or they didn't always?
They didn't always live in the Jurassic. First 21 million years, it was just their ancestors, the prosauropods, and basically from the mid Jurassic to the late Cretaceous, they were the largest herbivores on land. So no, they were quite successful even during the Cretaceous period, but for some reason, um, after about 93 million years ago, there seems to be this massive reduction in species. However, in certain areas, and also as you head towards the last 10 million years of the Cretaceous, they tend to kind of skyrocket in, well, at least increase in a variety of different species over in different parts of Asia and South America. In South America, they tend to stay about medium size. Asia and you could say North America, but there's only like a couple of species even occurring towards the end of the Cretaceous. In some cases, it's only one with Alamosaurus. But Asia seems to be the stronghold of the larger species of dinosaurs. Oh, well, I wasn't actually finished with him. We just went over to, I mean,
I couldn't find anything else on him.
oh, well, I don't think I even, well, you know what? We can move on. I mean, I could, like, come back to him. So, let's then bring up, I think we should bring up maybe a carnivore. So, the Veteruposaurus. Prosauropods seem to have first evolved around 230 million years ago, and then, happened to transition to the sauropods about 181 to 180 million years ago. Okay, so this is a species of Carcharodontosaur from Africa, specifically Tanzania, a little over 108 million years ago. And this animal was probably reaching somewhere between 26 to 33 feet in length or pushing around 10 meters.
Adrian Rojo wants in the chat. He's ready for some dirt.
Okay. Well, welcome aboard, Postasuchus. Let's see. So, it does have a very Carcharodontosaurus, also specifically sort of a look to its skull structure, and even when it comes to its forearms, I would say less so when comparing it to other large species of Carcharodontosaurs like Giganotosaurus, Mapusaurus, Tyrannotitan.
He said,
Um,
"I'm back, baby."
well, the Triassic is glad to have you on board or back on board. Let's see. Considering Postasuchus was over in Triassic Arizona around 220 million years ago. Let's see. Watch out for Smilasuchus, though. That semi-aquatic phytosaur. They have a high temperament. So let's see. I mean, technically, Vetrasaurus would have too. So this animal would have likely have fed on different species of sauropod dinosaurs over in early Cretaceous Tanzania at this point. It's also around this time and slightly, I think, later in some instances over in northern Africa or the Sahara region is where we bump into a wide variety of different species of ig- not guanodontids, sauropods that are about to evolve like into 90 to 100-foot specimens, or maybe pushing around 32 meters. Oh, yeah, this is also a good reconstruction of Veteroraptor source. Seems to be we have found certain parts of the pelvis, I think a few of the back vertebrae of this animal, and certain caudal vertebrae are along the tail. But definitely, this illustrator gave it a very heavy duty sort of an overall look.
So he's back from Europe and Asia.
Wow.
And wasn't he in Africa too? Or
Jeez.
am I just
Maybe Northern Africa, but I don't recall. That's a that's a lot of places to cover.
well, he was in
Mm,
Mexico for the
yeah,
first
wow.
time.
Yeah, that's a constant move back and forth. Even migratory birds would be a little too shocked. Pterosaurs too. But when looking at this species of Carcharodontosaur, it is interesting. It seems to be giving it
Nick
very
okay, Nick Rex just said it's a T-Rex.
um
He missed what it is.
Oh, no, no, no. This is not a close relative of the T Rex. This is actually a species of a member of Allosauridae, whereas T Rex is a member of Coelurosauridae. So the Allosauridae would have consisted of families of dinosaurs such as Allosauridae, the Carcharodontosauridae, and the Metracanthosauridae. And this animal is specifically a member of the Carcharodontosauridae, which is a member of Allosauridae, and
What's its name again?
Veteroraptorsaurus. And I am off when it comes to the time period by a vast amount. This animal was actually existing around 150 million years ago, so I switched it up with another theropod. So it likely would have coexisted with already very large species of sauropod dinosaurs, such as the Giraffatitan, which is the animal where Brachiosaurus tends to get most of its reconstructions from because we have more of an intact specimen, especially the skull of Giraffatitan compared to Brachiosaurus's skull. Um, Let's see. Well, this is an odd sort of a look. I mean, here's the thing. It's a huge debate onto how specifically the skull and much of the body would have looked like on this species of theropod, considering we only have a few bone fragments from the entire skeleton itself. So this is one of those species of carcharodontosaurs or even theropod dinosaurs where we're having to take the few bones that we have of the animal and then compare it with every single other species of carcharodontosaur. And well, actually, you could even say maybe not just even members of the carcharodontosaur lineage or the allosaurs, but possibly like even other lineages of theropod dinosaurs, like different members of like the megalosaur lineage. It seems to be on certain instances there might be a slight heightened back vertebrae in some regions. Well, actually, it seems to be along the whole body in this instance, which is similar to a species of carcharodontosaur named Acrocanthosaurus, which is from Texas and North Carolina, possibly Oklahoma. So, I mean, it's possible you might have had a carcharodontosaur look a bit more like an older allosaur, but this also would be one of the oldest carcharodontosaurs to exist. So it is a bit of a debate as to it being even a member of Carcharodontosaur lineage.
Uh, wait, hold on. Oh, John Doe said I got confused on which who said that. He said, "I like Postosuchus. He tried to be a dinosaur but failed."
Yeah, I mean, I guess like when we're looking at the Walking with Dinosaurs series from 1999, and even different later reconstructions, it's like at first he's being represented as being quadrupedal. I think he even showed up on a certain cartoon or another dinosaur animation before the show even appeared. And then later on, and from deeper analysis onto his overall anatomy, it very much looks like Postosuchus would have been bipedal and or walking on specifically two legs and contain much smaller forelimbs compared to his body size, where it doesn't look like he could really put much weight onto his forearms. So in essence, he's trying to imitate like some of the earliest species of Neotheropoda or some of the earliest carnivorous theropod lineages. Um, so, yeah, I mean, you could say he is related to the dinosaurs. He's just in a distant group, being the Pseudosuchians, and also more specifically the Rausuchian Pseudosuchians of the Triassic. And these were terrestrial archosaurs, like the different species of dinosaurs, but they were more closely related to modern day crocodilians than the dinosaurs were, because also all crocodilians are members of the Pseudosuchian lineage.
What is this
So
from?
I think this is just a model that popped up, years back and just somewhat imitating that quadrupedal look, but very distinct from the Walking with Dinosaurs, model. I mean, I think it's, very iconic and, even this odd guy, I'd say he has 2 I mean, aside from him being quadrupedal in this instance, also having far too short of a tail compared to its body size. I think that's one of the things that, at least when it comes to accuracy on Postosuchus, that Walking with Dinosaurs gets right, is that the tail is actually in decent length compared to its overall body. Whereas this specimen, it's far too short. Maybe when it was a youngster, but even then, the overall body is too mature like. Also, the skull, there's something off about it. It probably would have a bit more of like a certain theropod type of a look.
Cajun Rojo said, "Say Allosaurus 5 times real fast."
Um, yeah, well, I'm also trying to think of like other species. I mean, I'd say when it comes to the theropod lineage in general, Postosuchus might resemble certain megalosaurs over allosaurs, but I think there are also certain instances where he might be able to be compared with certain Coelurosaur species, but I think that might be a bit far off. But anyway, this is, yeah, the Walking with Dinosaurs model. The tail, it's still the problem. Like the length seems to be okay, but the problem with Postosuchus's tail stature in the Walking with Dinosaurs model is that it's pointed towards the ground. It really seems that this animal would have kept its tail um, far above the ground, like even with the rest of its body, and actually would be quite maneuverable as well. So not very stiff because it just seems to do that consistent, gradual movement back and forth, or at least from side to side. But that's about it. Let's see. So this animal would have been a carnivore and also one of the larger species of carnivores in the region that it inhabited. It wasn't necessarily like the largest species of carnivore to exist on land, even throughout the world, but also even the region that it inhabited. I would say it's one of the larger apex predators, but you had it where it had to be concerned about the phytosaurs over in the different lakes and rivers that it lived amongst.
I think that thing's gonna lose its tail.
Well, I'm trying to think of what specific dinosaur this could be. This is also, if you're looking at it from a paleo accurate perspective, Postosuchus lived before Coelophysis existed. It also seems to have occurred before possibly Plateosaurus, but Plateosaurus might have already existed. The problem is it didn't specifically coexist with Plateosaurus over in Arizona. Plateosaurus, there are certain fragmentary remains that possibly have popped up over in some part of eastern Canada, I believe. But outside of that, really seems to be existing over in different parts of Europe. There might have been certain South American specimens, but North America, at least, if it does exist, it's very rare, but nowhere near where Postosuchus seems to have reigned. So this specific dinosaur he might be attacking, at least for me, that's a bit of a question. I don't think it's a Styracosaurus, far too large.
So Agent Rojo said, on my trip around the world, we found at least 1 to 2 different species in each country
Wow. Yeah, well, yeah, it's, pretty good to hear. Um, I'm
that are
guessing
indigenous to the region. Well, unless
that's
you found them in a museum, I
well,
would.
I just well, I think it's just when, using that word for extinct animals, I think it's just kind of it's hard to use it because and actually, I think it tends to be avoided because, many times, certain animals or extinct animals tend to be known from, specific fossil finds in, let's say, like, different parts of North America. So, the animal seems to have only roamed that specific area, and it might be even mentioned, like, per se, what's a good example? Like maybe certain species of mosasaurs have been found to only exist over in the Western Interior Sea of North America because the Western Interior Sea cut North America in half 80 million years ago. And then all of a sudden, there turns out to be certain species that have been found over in Australia. Well, now that animals' range has massively increased. So, outside of creatures that pretty much we have discovered from almost every single part of the world, which I think has occurred with speaking of mosasaurs, certain types of other mosasaur species. I understand what you're saying, but it's a bit complicated to. I think that's partially just why the word's avoided,
He
or
said true.
huh?
He said true.
Okay, so yeah, it's still it is correct to say, like, for instance, Postasuchus is indigenous to Arizona. At least that's the guess. Considering you can have it where an animal, like, is in massive numbers in a certain region, but it's not necessarily native to that area. But it seems to be that Postasuchus, also looking at all of its features and the ecosystem that it inhabited, or looking at the different types of sediments, it probably was native to the region. It was very successful
He added, that we know of.
that we know of
It's
for.
indigenous.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's likely. Yeah, it's likely probable. Yeah, so I'm guessing. Well, I'm just trying to think of.
John Doe said, when I see footage of dinosaur excavations, I always think, how did it get there? Did it did it live in the area or did it just die there?
I think in certain instances where it becomes a bit of a mystery as to when we find different instances of dinosaurs being found in marine sediments, and like specifically in areas where it's a bit of a distance from the coast. And maybe what happened is that either it simply went swimming and maybe it ended up just drowning, or maybe it died on the coast and ended up just being washed ashore, or, not washed ashore, washed, or I guess the ocean pulled it into itself. And I'm trying to think of how to,
It died on a beach and got sucked into the water?
yeah, but I think that would be kind of complicated.
Well, I mean,
Maybe
a high tide can do it, but that
yeah, it's true.
depending on
And
the size of the dinosaur, it might be kinda hard.
yeah, it's true. Or, flash flood events can do it too. That's well, technically where, we find a lot of instances of where dinosaurs were probably not, at least at that moment, in a specific area, and they're also jumbled amongst each other, especially with like different species of centrosaur, ceratopsian, and horned dinosaurs that we have uncovered in massive numbers over in Alberta, Canada. Referring to marine sediments and specifically dinosaurs that have been found basically on the ocean floor, it tends to be in some instances with certain species of hadrosaurs that happen to just be preserved out at sea. So, it's quite miraculous that we have it where like species of mosasaurs didn't consume them.
Yeah, John Doe said washed out. Yeah, it's washed out to sea.
Yeah, washed out to sea. That's yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's the right one. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't recall any species of sauropods for that to have occurred with, like even just smaller individuals.
Adrian Rose said dinosaurs usually lived and died in the exact areas where we find their bodies today. Rivers, floods, and mud quickly covered their bodies after death.
Yeah. That's pretty much correct when it comes to very well preserved specimens, and in some other cases, it seems to be where I think you have it where part of the body might have been preserved, but maybe not the rest, and that's why all of a sudden you have it where there's only specific fragments discovered, or the whole body did become preserved at once, but there were certain issues where later in time that specific area or the sediment that it was buried under eroded, but certain parts of um, the area still stayed intact. And only that part of the specimen seems to be. That's why it's only like the few bone fragments. Let's say of even that Carcharodontosaur, the Veteroptosaurus, still remain.
Are you
At
saying
least,
that's because of only part of it actually ended up fossilizing?
no, it's like it fossilized, but there was massive erosion, and the bones just happened to
Oh, okay.
wash away elsewhere. But also that can occur as well, at least, as one of the theories. Also, what I'll say, one thing about this Postosuchus is I think the arms might be a little too large compared to its body size. This might match more with certain earlier members of the Archosaur lineage, not necessarily of truly Pseudosuchiae, possibly even occurring before that lineage. But the Poposaurs, such as Poposauridae or Poposaurus itself, member of Poposauridae,
Is it really
which
the papa?
Popo,
Oh,
but,
okay.
yeah, he possibly likes seafood now and then. But seems to have probably also have hunted smaller species of archosaurs, maybe even going after, certain species of smaller amphibians and reptiles at the time, or proto-dinosaurs, which you could almost say the Poposaurs are, but it's not exactly when you're looking at certain species like Ephegia. Um But yeah, I think it's a large whoa. Okay, I guess this is another older reconstruction. Yeah, the head is massive on this individual. Um, I mean, Postosuchus does have, in many instances, very theropod-like teeth, and much less so, like, even compared to different species other species of, Crocodilomorpha. Now, not including other, Suchians. But it is interesting despite it being quite distantly related.
This guy looks like he's looking for a treat.
Very thin legs, though. Whoa. Well, actually, I kind of like this painting, but yeah, he's a bit far off. Very also thin legs compared to his body size, though. I also think they might be a little tall, at least with I mean, not tall, short. No, actually, they might be in a fine length. It's just that the forearms might be, yeah, are probably a little long. He likely wasn't also putting this amount of weight onto his forelimbs most of the time. And his head, I would say in this instance, is far too small. It should be much larger. Now, the neck, I mean, it is interesting when you're looking at the skeletal reconstruction of a Postosuchus. I mean, it's not too hard to possibly mistake it for some odd species of theropod dinosaur. Just happens to be relatively short compared to its length, considering Postosuchus could reach somewhere between 15 to 18 feet in length, or somewhere around maybe 4.8 to 5 meters. And yet it's still extremely short, like somewhere around 3.5 feet
Wait, I have someone wearing
at
a
the hips,
costume.
maybe a little over meter. That's a good costume.
It
Mm.
looks like a costume.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, the arms are too long on this individual. His skull is better, at least when it comes to
That's
at least
because it's someone wearing a costume.
yeah, it's true. Except the tail lagging on the ground, it's probably, I mean, that's also gonna hurt Postosuchus in real life too, despite likely having pretty, tough osteoderms, their overall scaly structure, which is going to be different from the dinosaurs, but in some cases, it is interesting how similar different crocodilians of today, can have at least certain, bottom belly armor compared to like different species of theropod dinosaurs, and it can be just quite similar in the scale texture. Oh yeah, we were looking at this guy. He was probably weighing at somewhere around 3.5 to 4 tons. So it's a medium-sized species of Carcharodontosaur, but for the late Jurassic, he's huge. Even for Allosaurs, Megalosaurs at this time as well. So even when you're putting Torvosaurus and Allosaurs into this comparing game, Veterapristosaurus might rule on top, but then again, There's Allosaurus anax and the larger Torvosaurus is a Tannerai. There is the other species that also pushes from around 3.8 to 4 tons. So they compete for the title.
Oh, wait, somebody drew him.
Well, aside from the tongue sticking up like that, which some just doesn't seem to be that dinosaurs had that ability. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. There's other issues, especially when looking at his core. It's like far too sunken in. Like, where's the chest? There's like barely a chest or a like the wishbone for this animal. Seems to be kind of ignored, but maybe he's trying to create that vacuum and Um, he's, like, preparing for some Carcharodontosaur bodybuilding competition or fitness competition, but, yeah, that's a little short. I think also the arms could be a bit larger, but he also when looking at Vitruptosaurus, we don't really have any forearm, specimens, so that's a huge question.
Oh, wait,
Um,
another one.
yeah, he look I mean, it's like it's a good drawing, but it's just when it comes to the accuracy. Oh, okay. Hmm, interesting. Well, they're definitely giving him very small arms. It's almost like comparable knocking off the fact that it has 3 fingers and maybe a bit of a large shoulder blade, but almost like T-Rex size. The T-Rex might be a bit more muscular. It's really I mean, it is a good drawing as well. They're also adding those distinctive Carcharodontosaur or Allosaur osteoderms from the back of the skull down to at least midway to the end of the tail. But, yeah, I like the movement that it's being given. And I think overall, yeah, the skull structure looks very primitive Carcharodontosaur-like. I mean, for the late Jurassic. And also over in Tanzania, it's like we have the different species of sauropods, the brachiosaurs roaming the region. He probably went after much younger individuals. He's not messing with a 50-ton, Giraffatitan adult, and definitely not a herd of those individuals. And probably preyed on certain, sick or
Okay, this doesn't say for
younger
sure what
ones.
it is.
Oh, I've seen, yeah, reconstruction of this. I don't
I
think
mean,
I
it
mean,
does say it's it, but wait a minute.
yeah, it's from a book. I don't remember if it might be
It
90s.
does say it's what it is.
Actually, it could be 80s. We had some really we have a lot of good reconstructions of dinosaurs from the 80s. But yeah, he's hunting some iguanodontid. However, I think this is from the Cretaceous, at least judging by the iguanodontid appearance. Like it looks like a certain species of North American, at least what we can see, iguanodontid from about like 135 million years ago. But I don't think it's a Decododon. This is also over in Africa, and we also have iguanodontids occurring throughout the early Cretaceous of Africa. But who is this? Hmm. I mean, considering we don't have a lot with Veteraptor I mean, it could be him. And honestly, it is a good depiction. It's just off of some possibly massive floodplain. Definitely capable of going after different species. Smaller guanodontins at this point, and also the different species it likely coexisted with did not have necessarily the large thumb spikes. They still contain them, but of animals like iguanodon. That is a mystery. I really he does have a very also Allosaurus sort of a look to him. Actually, I kind of wonder if it is Allosaurus now because doesn't seem to wait. We don't have the skull of that Carcharodontosaur either. And I think the forearms are too small for Allosaurus. Allosaurus for the Allosaur lineage has relatively large forearms compared to its body size. Compared to most other theropods. Okay. I guess we can go on to another animal. And I think all these pictures just have their own um depiction for the this Carcharodontosaur. Except those last two seem to be pointing towards a type of a look. Okay. A very mysterious one, the Ostaphrygmosaurus.
Yeah, say that 3 times fast.
Sounds like a seafood. This is also coming in from the early Cretaceous.
This is one depiction.
Okay, so this animal, it is a huge mystery as to what it is because um Ostafrikasaurus seems to be really just known from a tooth, yet it seems to match different species of non-elongated back vertebrate species of spinosaurs.
Wait, wait. You're saying the entire description of this guy comes from a tooth?
This has also happened with different species of sauropods and other theropod dinosaurs, but yes. So, and also when it comes to the estimated length of this animal, it could be pushing over 30 to 35 feet or pushing 9 to nearly 11 meters, and probably also weighing in around 3.5 tons. So, probably a bit larger than creatures such as Suchomimus, Baryonyx, maybe, was it Siamosaurus? And this animal seems to have existed over in East Africa, like the Veteraptosaurus, somewhere around 145 million years ago.
But if we'd have found a tooth of a lot of dinosaurs, wouldn't we have thought they were tiny?
Well, if you're comparing it with other species of dinosaurs or theropod dinosaurs, in this instance, with a similar sized tooth, then no, you would still think they were much larger.
No, if you weren't comparing it, you just found their
Oh,
tooth. Like,
I
you
guess
you
if
have some teeth that are tiny.
yeah, if I guess the person's not too familiar with the teeth of how large teeth are of other species of theropod dinosaurs, larger ones, but um,
No, I wasn't referencing theropods, I was just referencing,
in general.
yeah, you have some teeth that are tiny and the dinosaurs are huge. What?
Okay, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, I think that tends to be found, or it happens when you're looking at the crown of the tooth. In fact, this happens with a lot of T Rex teeth, certain T Rex teeth, even certain allosaurs, and only this much of the tooth has been discovered. So yes, then some might assume that oh, okay, a very
Yeah, who has
like
the little tiny teeth?
pinky nail sort of size.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. I guess yeah, you would probably assume that it was a juvenile or maybe even a hatchling in some instances. Probably a juvenile. Um,
but who has those?
who has like very small, like that's certain species of dromaeosaurs, but dromaeosaurs in some instances probably had because I'm thinking of like a short but a wide sort of a tooth.
Yeah.
Now, well, I guess certain types of tyrannosaurs.
No, they're not
Oh,
carnivores.
sauropods. So, like if we have found
They're
oh, wait a second. Yeah, because sauropods, they tend to be long but leaf shaped, like a wide leaf. Iguanodontids and ceratopsians tend to have quite short molars, relative even to their overall skull size. Almost like when you're looking at certain species of mammalian teeth, like you're looking at bison, elephants, people, the molars of like even lions or bears. You could say that there's almost a bit of a resemblance between the animals or between the dinosaurs or the ceratopsians or the iguanodontids and the mammals, despite being very distantly related to each other. Yet both are capable of slicing through at least certain types of plant material. Now, technically, where's I getting with that? Oh, spinosaurs tend to have like a long, thin sort of a tooth structure. Like when you're looking at Spinosaurus teeth, you're looking at Baryonyx teeth. They are quite similar, but um, there is a bit of a difference. At least I'm trying to think of when it comes to Baryonyx teeth. Obviously, when looking at the skull, it's very different from Spinosaurus. But I am wondering as to who's this supposed to belong to?
him.
Oh, this is of Ostafrikasaurus. Also, it's a question as to whether or not he is a member of Spinosauridae. Like it's literally if he is, he could be one of the earliest species of Spinosaurs to exist because Spinosaurs are really only known from the early Cretaceous. And if it is true, he's probably the only Jurassic Spinosaur that we know of. Let's see. Also, it kind of shows that they also evolved in Africa. So it's one of the few times where the out of Africa theory might be true. And then many other instances with other animals, it tends to be the opposite.
Adrian Rojo said that looks like a baryonyx.
Um, yeah, he does, at least when given
Well,
the
this picture.
reconstruction. Yeah, he does look a bit more similar to Baryonyx than he does Suchomimus. Suchomimus has a much longer, more narrow snout compared to Baryonyx.
Considering it's all made off of this tooth.
Yeah, and also compared to Spinosaurus, Spinosaurus has a much thinner or at least shorter in diameter sort of a tooth compared to what we're seeing here. And probably even compared to what we're looking at with Baryonyx. Baryonyx might have much wider teeth. And it is interesting. This isn't something or characteristic that you would think of, at least when looking at the Spinosaur lineage, considering their skull shape and what they're really feeding on being fish for the most part, or being very piscivorous, which is what animal is that eats a lot of fish, mostly fish. So yeah, this quite it is interesting. It probably had relatively strong bite force compared to most other spinosaurs with this type of a tooth and skull structure. Also the question is, was he also coexisting with different species of Brachiosaurus? It is possible. He was probably coexisting with Giraffatitan as well. Um, Maybe certain other iguanodontids in the region. At this point, especially over in Africa, there isn't any evidence of different species of early ceratopsians or even ankylosauromorphs to have occurred in this region. There were, however, different species of stegosaurs. So you might have had spinosaurs also coexisting with different species of stegosaurs, specifically in this region. Trying to think of what else, but yeah, I mean, comparing it with the wide variety of different species of theropod dinosaurs, and now since it seems it's the closest to a certain baryonychids, there's a number of things we can get from this tooth.
John John Doe said the logo would make a good hat.
Yeah, how would that? Well, I'm just trying to think of a specific hat shape, but thanks.
No,
Or
hat shape
yeah.
on a like a baseball cap
Oh,
with the
okay.
logo on it,
Yeah. Well, I was
which I
thinking.
just haven't done yet.
Yeah, I was thinking of a baseball cap, but I think also like a massive sticker on a cowboy hat, but I think that would be a bit odd.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, also it's kind of nice to see we possibly have part of the crown, not the crown, because the crown's the top of the tooth. The root of the tooth of this individual. I also wonder how long it is. It's just showing a a black line, but not like in millimeters or inches, centimeters. So that's a bit mysterious, at least at the moment. I seem to have it marked. The question is, like, it's oh yeah, it's just from one tooth. Hmm. Well, hopefully it's protected. Well, besides this, I mean, I guess we can go on to another creature. Probably this time an herbivore.
Okay, who do you want?
Oh, so it's probably a member of the megalosaur lineage as well, considering that's what the spinosaurs belong to. The Hyungnosaurus.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Hyungnosaurus. The Stegosaur. Or Gyeongjunsaurus. Fried rice. Um, the interesting thing is, so this species of Stegosaur that I'm referring to is also a member of not just Stegosauridae, but Stegosaurini. And there are a few different branches of Stegosauridae. And the interesting thing is, so this also is a close relative of Stegosaurus, but it's still a bit distantly related to that specific genus. It just belongs to the same subfamily of Stegosaurs. So Young Dinosaurs was probably reaching some around 23 feet in length or pushing about 7 meters, so probably weighed around 1.5 tons. And unlike Stegosaurus, Huerosaurus, Hesperosaurus, it had a different arrangement of plates along its back, especially to the end of its tail. And also, unlike those specific species, it or genre, it had a specific thagomizer sticking out from its shoulder blade, which is a bit of a common characteristic within certain parts of the Stegosaur lineage, but it's obviously not present within those other three genera, especially Stegosaurus. However, it does have very short, at least in width, plates or osteoderms occurring along the front of its batch structure and even the neck structure compared to certain other species. Like when you're looking at Werechosaurus, which tends to have quite wide but shorter type of plates, as well as like when you're looking at Hesperosaurus. Now, it is interesting how they become almost like a several series of thagomizers as you go from like about the end of the back vertebrae and even along the pelvis all the way to the end of the tail. But the thagomizers at the end of the tail do not match species like Stegosaurus. They're not really pointed towards the sky and even slightly diagonally. They're very much even with the tail itself, but still had that, I guess, slight slant to them. Well, this is an odd depiction. It's not too far from the animal. I think it's just a bit short, at least when it comes to maybe the overall animal's height. However, it really messed up on the thagomizers along the tail. It kind of made them into bit pointier plates and very short. That's not a good Yang sort of a look. This is not an early Cretaceous. It's a mid-Jurassic species of Stegosaur. So this animal was inhabiting China around 160 million years ago. So it would have coexisted with likely certain earlier species of allosaurs at this time. They're members of Allosauroideae. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of specifically the Allosaurus genus existing over in China at this point. This is definitely a very immense reconstruction, at least when it comes to the overall size of this animal compared to other looks. Now, they're giving a very large thagomizers towards the end of his tail. Um, that is interesting. I'm kind of wondering if maybe certain older reconstructions were just undersizing them. But, I guess what is interesting is that you're having massive thiomizers basically towards the pelvis region, the upper part of the caudal vertebrae or the upper part of the tail, and then immensely short towards the um last four thagomizers of the bottom of the caudal vertebrae region. It's like, why would the body do this? I mean, just create like very immensely short spikes in this instance and then create massive ones. I mean, it still would have been quite well protected for the Jurassic, but it's just odd. I mean, you could also ask like why specifically did it decide to evolve these like single thagomizers on each shoulder blade. Now, definitely predators like different species of allosaurs, ceratosaurians, had to be very careful when attacking stegosaurs like these species. Not that animals, like even stegosaurus that just had those four spikes at the end of their tail were pushovers. I mean, they're some of the most flexible dinosaurs to evolve. Now, besides that, I think what's also interesting is that he has rather tall plates along the neck compared to certain species, like even Stegosaurus itself. Even other animals like or stegosaurs like Kentrosaurus, which tend to have also thinner but more spaced out plates along the neck. They tend to be quite close to each other in this instance. The overall legs, they also look I guess decent for a stegosaur. I think they're a bit odd with the back legs, almost like he's wearing pants. But besides that, it has very small feet compared to its body size, which is a very stegosaur trait. And he also is just simply feeding on different species of ferns at this time. There aren't any species of flowers that these stegosaurs, at least at this point in the Mesozoic, would have been feeding on.
I can't find anything else on him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that little Ramparinket. It's just hanging out. I mean,
I didn't even notice that till you said it.
yeah, this was a they were dominating to an extent the Jurassic period, like 160 million years ago. The Ramparinkins were quite common. They weren't the largest species or branch of pterosaurs in size to exist there, however.
Adrian Rose said it looks like a Kentrosaurus.
Um, it's a bit, however, distantly related to the Kentrosaurus, but yes, it does contain those specific Thagomizer characteristics, very similar to Kentrosaurus, even the smaller plates. Kentrosaurus, however, does not contain side Thagomizers. I think sometimes it can be confused with other stegosaurs that contain that type of characteristic because basically it is very similar, also having a longer neck compared to its body size. This animal might be a bit closer to Stegosaurus, obviously, because you have certain species like Miragaia that have much longer necks. Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back.
John Doe said not even some cheesy elevator music.
Trying to think of what that would sound like.
I think he wants me to go da 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 da.
Well, I guess for the Mesozoic it would count. Okay.
Probably explains before why you lost like 10 people one time when you did that.
Oh, well, let's bring up a species of herbivore. I mean, did any, yeah, the Angulomasticator.
And Adrian Rojo wants a diploma because he can count to 120. What am
I'm
I getting?
sure I'm sure the Stegosaurus would be impressed.
What what'd you ask for?
The Anglo masticator.
Hold on, is this it? Mm,
See, hadrosaur.
oh, come on. Oh, this one's small.
Okay, so yeah, the interesting thing about this animal, I believe we do have part of the skull intact. So this is a species of hadrosaur that has been found deep in the heart of Texas, and specifically dating to around 76 million years ago. Oh, okay. Whoa. So apparently, he's had enough of Dinosuchus. Though this Dinosuchus seems to have too narrow of a skull, so maybe it's supposed to be another large crocodilomorph from that time. But the thing is with the angulomasticator is that this animal, despite it, in some illustrations, it's given like a very almost Corythosaurus like skull structure, or at least the crest. Then in some other instances, it's being reconstructed as almost being more similar to a species of Parasaurolophus. However, it seems to be classified as a member of the Lambeosaur lineage, so it is quite odd. It's just also simply a heavy debate as well. But yeah, maybe also it seems to be with the size of this creature, it's probably reaching somewhere around maybe 25 to 30 feet in length. Actually, no, I think I'm underestimating that. It's probably pushing somewhere around 36 feet or pushing 11 meters. So also possibly reaching around 5 to 6 tons. So one of the larger species of hadrosaurs from especially Texas, but definitely North America as a whole. I mean, it also had relatives over in different parts of Montana, New Mexico, Alberta, and even Alaska. So the Lambeosaurs seem to have evolved also pushing somewhere around 82 to 86 million years ago, slightly earlier into the Cretaceous period, since this is during the late Campanian stage. And also, it's definitely not going after different species of crocodilomorphs. It is an herbivore, so it's just focusing on a wide variety of different species of flowers and ferns at the time. Maybe also feeding on shorter species of trees or even shrubs.
Uh, I
But
I got to break in. John Doe said it'd be awesome if you got Robert Balker to come in and have a discussion with you. So 1 second. Where'd he go? Wait, did I go too far? Hold on.
is it far enough?
I'm pretty sure I was. There it is.
Oh yeah. So this was back in I think the fall of 2018. No, no, no. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, Balker had come to the Houston Museum of Natural Science for presentation. He had done one like a very similar. Basically, he would come over and draw a handful. Well, what I mean by handful is probably I don't know 20 or 30 different dinosaur species.
It wasn't that many.
Um, okay, maybe 15 to 20
10 to 15,
or
something
10 to
like that.
15.
Yep.
Yeah. Um,
This is where you were introducing him to your brother.
yeah, so, yeah, I mean, it was quite well, I mean, it's quite, yeah, like, astounding to be able to, discuss with him or at least ask about, like, different fossils that I had and what specifically he can make up of, like, what animal they could belong to considering, when we had purchased them, it was really a mystery, like, I had certain teeth
Oh, that was
that
years before this.
oh, well, yeah, I'm talking about another, instance. But, no, I think there were even other animals that I was asking about at this point. but I don't remember which ones. Um, but yeah, he was over for a few days, and yeah, it was pretty good. He's also the curator of the museum as well.
Yeah. You were the
He's just
direct
he
intern to the curator of paleontology.
Well, he also travels well, mainly stays within, like, either, like, northern Texas when he's focusing on, like, the Texas red beds of different Permian fossils, like, over around 275 to 280 million years ago, like Dimetrodon, Diplocalus, Ariups from the region. It's also where the museum got, pretty much all of their Permian specimens from, and even over in, different parts of Colorado, like, especially adjacent to Morrison, like the Morrison Museum of Natural History. Let's see. So, this animal also likely had hundreds of teeth inside of its mouth, which is a very hadrosaur trait, even when it comes to other species of iguanodontids.
John Doe said that's pretty dang cool, and then Agent Rose said, "I'm jealous." Yeah, but you
Let's
were putting in 40, 50, 60 hours a week in the museum.
Yeah, it was like, especially like teaching over in the Paleo Hall. Pretty much going into depth about like just not just the animals that were in the area, like also not including like certain species of trilobites, considering I think the hall like had a little over 20 to 30 different species, but I just don't focus on the trilobites. Like the dinosaurs, prehistoric mammals. Let's see. So,
Here's
um,
a goofy one.
okay, there seems to be a thing with this guy and Dinosuchus.
Dinosaurus bit his nose off.
Yeah, like we have a Dimetrodon Diplocalus flashback. Like the Dinosuchus is bringing back the tradition. He's not even closely related, but he's like, I admire that proto mammal. I'm going to continue this tradition of biting the snout off of my prey items before finally taking them out. Okay, we have a bit of definitely a Lambeosaurus sort of a look, but like a massive throat sac. And when it comes to the crest structure, it is very Lambeosaurus like, and you could say it is also relative of the Angulomasticator, but um, it's a bit further off in the family tree.
John Doe said the dinosaurs are a tooth fairy's nightmare.
Um, yep, sort of,
What would
or
those cost?
it's also considering that the dinosaurs would consistently lose their teeth. So it's not just, a couple of sets or even 6 sets like modern day elephants. I don't know whether or not the mastodons or the mammoths would have also consistently have lost their teeth like in the same amount that modern day elephants do. So that is a bit of a mystery at the moment, but it might be a mystery in oh, I don't know. I mean, we know that dinosaurs would have consistently lost their teeth. So the question is with mammoths and mastodons, it might have been the same like today's elephants. But yeah, also it doesn't seem to be that Lambeosaurus has ever been discovered over in Texas. Seems to be primarily over in Alberta, possibly certain remnants coming from Montana, but really over in central Canada. Still existing like pretty much at the same time, about 75 million years ago. It is possible that Aguilomasticator probably reached somewhere around, actually had a bit of a longer reign, maybe extending to about like 73 million years ago. But it's likely feeding on some of the same stuff. So maybe going after like prehistoric palms and just other different species of ferns over in Lake Cretaceous, Canada. But also would have coexisted with different species of ceratopsians. What on earth? Um, Under Aguilomasticator. That is odd.
Wait a minute, it gets worse.
That's like a lizard mixed with oh, no. Like, somebody took the Jurassic Park raptors, gave it conical okay, it's got a lot of odd things. Like some weird dragon mixed with a, Jurassic Park velociraptor.
I'm sorry, I just had to show those.
Yeah, you could even say there's like a Utah raptor sort of appearance to it, but yeah, it's got issues. Him for certain. And what's he's munching on?
He's listed as it.
Yeah, that's an issue.
AI gets very confused.
Yeah, this doesn't really resemble any species of Archosaur. I think reptile that we know of. There are certain species of Archosaurs though, back in the Triassic that had a bit of a curved sort of an upper jaw, at least towards the upper or the front part of the snout, but nothing like this. This almost reminds me of what they did to the Ramphorhynchus over in Walking with Dinosaurs, where they gave it like completely tissue and skinless like upper beak, but also or that was specifically exposed bone. Well, technically this beak is too, but it's more of like a bird of some sort.
You want another one?
Okay. Yeah, I guess let's bring up the monoclonius.
Did you say monoclonius?
The ceratopsian. The other
Oh, I
one.
got it. Okay. Oh, I like this. Oh, wait a minute. Ah,
Oh yeah, so this is a painting from Charles R. Knight of Monoclonius. So he was found very early into the 1900s over in Montana and likely Alberta, Canada as well. So also adjacent to the Judith River Formation of Montana and the Dinosaur Park Formation of Alberta. So Monoclonius is a medium-sized species of herbivorous ceratopsian. So this is also around 76 to 77 million years ago, back in the late Cretaceous period. And this creature is probably reaching some around 23 to 24 feet in length, or pushing 7 to 7.2 meters. And also probably weighed in around 1.5 tons. But it wouldn't have its tail dragging on the ground. Its feet would probably be much wider compared to its body size. I will say though, for Charles R. Knight, I mean, this was a very good depiction of the ceratopsian for back then. This animal has also been used in a wide variety of different um, animated movies. At least when it came to, I think 1925, The Lost World. I believe that ceratopsian might have been a monoclonius.
okay.
It could have been another species.
This is, I think, the actual picture.
No, it's
No,
the other one, I believe. But maybe he stuck it in another? No, I think somebody photoshopped that.
I think they photoshopped both of them.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the background does seem a little dull.
Yeah, here's the wait.
I would think it would kind of resemble at least the background is. Oh, okay. You just do in black and white? Osborne. Oh, it was,
No, it's a picture.
yeah, was it by Henry Fairfield Osborne, I think, and Charles R. Knight. So also the person who named Tyrannosaurus, the paleontologist that named Tyrannosaurus Rex. Wow. Yeah, that's a that's a really good reconstruction. Now obviously it has changed. I
Oh, this is interesting.
wait a second. Are we sure that's him? Yeah, I think it is. Because it mentioned Triceratops SP, which would stand for species. Well, yeah, that's the thing is that Monoclonius has relatively short um, eye socket horns compared to its body size, but also a much longer nasal horn, considering it is a member of the Centrosaur lineage of dinosaurs and it's not a Chasmosaur. So yeah, I guess this is the same animal. He also appears to have occurred on Prehistoric Beast. It was an animated, well, more of like a claymation sort of film done back in 1985. And I think he's fighting off possibly a Albertosaurus in that forest scenario. It's a really good It's a really good, claymation sort of, at least I think it's claymation scenario. And yes, there is sound, and it's in color. I think it's just most when they're thinking of older representations of, like, that sort of, clay model is, like, from the Lost World. But there was another instance, where it takes place, I think, further back in time or maybe it's like another like adjacent alternate world. And I think it was like back in the 1960s or early 1970s, but I think it was 60s. Done by a company back in or over in the Czech Republic. And there was also like a well done woolly mammoth in it. I think it was one of the first woolly mammoths to be claymated, but there were also other dinosaurs within it too. But focusing on this animal, yeah, he is very short, if even existent, eye socket horns. Very protruding nasal horn. These do not look very monoclonius like. There is a certain other species of centrosaur that this could more evenly match. I will say that the babies would not be riding on the backs of the adults, most likely. I mean, maybe they would attempt to if they're, trying to swim through deep water, but I would assume that the adults would be smart enough not to, at least take their youngsters, at least in, very powerful currents
What
in
are
deeper
these?
water. It Scolosaurus. So it's a species of ankylosaur from the time. It just seems to be a much older reconstruction. I think this is from a painting probably done in the 1940s, possibly. Maybe 1950s. And like even the monoclonius is given that very wide centrosaur appearance from the time. Also, his tail slightly dragging on the ground, very small hind feet. I'm not sure what that's about. That's interesting. Very wide nasal horn too. Centrosaurs tend to have like a long nasal horn, but it's not usually very wide. I'd say it's more of a chasmosaur trait. If you're not including, like, the domes of certain species of centrosaurs like the pachyrhinosaurs, the Kellosaurus. But yeah, I'd say they're oddly reconstructed too. I think that's supposed to represent that ankylosaur that pops up during the, or in the Land Before Time. It could be of another species.
There's another one.
Oh, yeah, so that's another depiction. Not sure if that's from Knight, but probably another, paleo artist from the early 1900s or late 1800s.
It's by Joseph Moravec.
I believe I've heard of him. I think he was working with certain other paleontologists. I think he possibly even described certain species.
It doesn't give the year it was done, though.
Hmm. Oh, I mean, it could be late 1800s in certain instances. But maybe even like 1910s,
Oh, wait a minute,
1920s.
1876. Wait.
Wow, okay, this
No, no,
is
no,
a
no, no. It says it was first described in 1876.
oh,
No.
oh. I was gonna say, yeah, this is pretty good. But yeah, I don't think drawings had reached that point yet. Definitely late 1880s and into the 1890s
Why does
we're
this guy look
approaching.
like a rhino?
I think earlier Centrosaur or Ceratopsians reconstructions in general would have that rhino-like appearance. Also, when it comes to the Centrosaurs, given that distinct horn, there doesn't really seem to be any that had a distinct like two-horned appearance, like with what you see in certain rhino species. There are many species of rhinos that only have one nasal horn.
Adrian Rojo said, "Goodbye, fellow theropods."
Okay. See you later, Postasuchus. Let's see. Yeah, he also has that bit of a um sort of a gap, kind of like what we were seeing in the Mercury Ceratops, even though he's very distantly related. Yeah, I think it's slightly showing like small nubs above the eye socket, but a very distinct pointed like upper beak. It's very different from even other species of centrosaurs. I think it is interesting. I mean, how we have like of certain ceratopsians, a slightly intact skull structure, and others like the full head specimen is there. But at least when we were looking at Mercury ceratops, and only a portion it seemed was intact. Okay, so thanks for joining, and wait a second, we're going to give everybody a minute to put anything into the comments.
Hold on. John Doe says, I remember I had to keep telling someone that ceratopsians are not related to rhinos because of the nose horn, because they believe that they were.
Yeah, I think for many, I mean, when you look at a rhino, you look at a ceratopsian, you can see where they would continue to assume that the animals are related. It's also that Triceratops' horns are made out of solid bone. They would have been covered with an extra layer of keratin, but it's the minor amount of the horn. And rhino horns are completely made out of hair.
But most people don't even know that.
Um, yeah, I think that seems to be one of the main issues. What's another thing?
I didn't know it till you told me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of certain other dinosaurs comparing to like certain other animals. I mean, I guess you could say like sauropods being closely related to giraffes, or why some people might assume that because giraffes have long necks for animals of today. However, they had the exact same amount of or number of vertebrae or cervical vertebrae in their neck, like per se humans do, which is basically 7 vertebrae. Whereas sauropods, it can differ depending on the species. Same thing for also looking at the different species of long necked marine reptiles, being the plesiosaurs, and they also have many more vertebrae. It also varies depending on the species. See who else. Well, they're probably also comparing it with like animals such as Brachiosaurus, Giraffatitan, Sauropsidon.
Okay, I'm just bringing this up. It it literally is saying Walker is living in Texas. He doesn't live here, does he?
I think sometimes he does live for a part of the year.
I thought he
Um,
stopped doing that though. I thought you had
mm,
told me he was purely up in Colorado now.
yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I know like it's like constant, obvious contact with like somewhere over in northern Texas with Morrison.
No, it's saying here.
Like it wouldn't be specifically the Houston area, huh?
Yeah,
Um,
remains based in Texas as a curator of paleontology. Yeah, they're getting this wrong.
yeah,
He's never been based here.
y-
He was the curator, but he wasn't based here.
yeah. It would be now and then he would come over to.
I don't even think at one point he popped up for like 2 years.
Yeah, it was a bit of time. Like, I'm also kind of wondering if, like, he was the one that designed the original Paleo Hall, like, before the 2011, which was done by, him, Peter Larson from Black Hills Institute, certain other paleontologists.
Did he?
Well, he was definitely part in, like, the donations of, the different T-Rexes, Triceratops, I believe the Diplodocus, obviously the Permian, specimens.
John Doe said, hold on. He said, okay, it's been swell, but the swelling has gone down. See you next time.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, alright, see you later, Allosaurus.
And Akita Bear on Kick said, what's your favorite Cretaceous theropod?
That is probably Spinosaurus aegypticus. I mean, you could say creatures like Carcharodontosaurus, Giganotosaurus don't fall too far behind. But then there's also like smaller species. But yeah, probably Spinosaurus, who's a very unique species among the theropod lineage in general. So, like he's also the longest species of terrestrial theropod dinosaur that we know of. Not the heaviest, however. But yeah, I think he just looks pretty splendid with his massive elongated back vertebrae, his distinct long skull shape. So thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Happy International Monoclonius Day. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time. That's the centrosaur.